a lot of artists that we work with just don't want to be on social media. In fact, new artists we're talking to, we're just about to sign a new artist. They don't even want to be on Spotify. They see no value being on Spotify. And
Yeah,
so
I
when I
hear
talk to
that.
them about what we're doing and the power of Bitcoin and platforms like Wavelake and Fountain and any other platforms coming out in this space, that's all they want to do. They want to be there.
Oh,
And then when you
excellent.
bring Nostar and say Primal or any other platform into the picture, now you have the ability to build a community as an artist, take your data wherever you want, but really actually speak to your community, and that changes everything. And that's what we've been trying to get to for a long time.
Keep 'em cold till I'm old. I don't plan to blow my load. Wallet so blue, if you know, you know. It's better than bonds, better than gold. Finna reap up what I sow. If it money can't keep up, it gets sold. How many times you been told? DCA's the way to go. Higher highs, higher lows. Every year my network grows. Every day my network grows. Running relays, running nodes. Yeah. Dollar a day's a minimum. Stats, zap sats. Any fear I get, flipping 'em.
All right. So, Serene Sass, this has been a long time coming. I asked you to, sorry about that. We were trying to set up this podcast episode for quite some time. I know you're quite busy in the music industry. Can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, thank you. First of all, Saida, thanks so much for having me on. Hi, everybody. My name is Serene Sass. I am a record label executive in the music industry. My company is called Conscious Music Group. We've set it up quite recently, and Bitcoin is going to change the music industry with no question at all.
Yeah, I'm really excited about like talking about that. I think so we met through Men Like Quakes, who does the intro and the outro to my podcast. His music is fire. And when he was on, I think it was when the whole like P. Diddy thing started to erupt and stuff like that. And I remember thinking at that time about how vulnerable some of the artists seem to have been. I don't know the details or anything. And I just thought about how sovereignty and Bitcoin could really help artists in general in terms of saving money and, like just building a foundation where they're maybe less reliant on, I guess, the traditional music industry kind of thing. So after that, Man Like Quakes is like, you need to have Serene on your podcast to talk about music and stuff like that. So I'm happy you're here. Before we jump into like a lot of these details and stuff, can you like just share, when did you discover music and when did you figure out that you wanted to be in the music industry?
It's such a big question because I think everyone, excuse me, maybe I'll just go back to this first of all, that there are three types of music: music of musical instruments, music of the human body and soul, and then the music of the spheres, which is music of the cosmos. And so it really means that the entire universe is built on frequency and vibration of energy, and every living thing vibrates at a certain level with its own kind of frequency or velocity. And it's really why I think almost every person on the planet has such a deep resonance with music, and it really does have the power to uplift and inspire and transcend all boundaries and the power to heal and all of those kinds of things. And so I think we come into this planet with that intrinsically in our soul. But to take my story kind of back to, I guess, how I grew up, my dad was a jazz musician, and I kind of grew up surrounded by like all the greats: Billie Holiday, Thelonious Monk, Bill Evans, the great Miles Davis, one of my heroes and musical geniuses. But my dad loved all kinds of music as well. So I always remember when I was, I don't know, maybe 11 or 12, my dad had a cassette tape of Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. And I was obsessed with this. Like, I don't know what like drew me to it, but all my friends, all my girlfriends were listening to Madonna, right? And I was just
Yeah.
obsessed with Pink Floyd, like crazy. And my dad, there would always be jam sessions at our house. My dad would always be playing piano or I don't know, some Brazilian music or guitar or something. And so all my friends would come to my house. And we grow up we grew up for a minute in a council estate, which in the UK, a council estate is like the projects, you know, it's pretty
Yeah,
rough.
same with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty rough. There were a lot of skinheads. It was incredibly racist.
Oh, wow.
And then we left and moved to Australia after that. But what my dad, I always remember, like, even though we were living in, you know, in the projects, we had really good quality speakers and a really good quality amp and beautiful turntables. And he would always say, you have to turn the music up loud, especially jazz, because you need to hear every instrument that's being played, right? And that always stuck with me. But basically, I didn't actually think I'd be in the music industry, to be quite honest. I was quite academically smart at school. And I think back then, you kind of have this thing that if you're smart, you're not very creative, or at least that was kind of the space that I had kind of grown up in. And so I got top of my school in like maths and law. So for some reason, I wanted to be a lawyer. Maybe I watched too much LA Law or one of those really
Yeah.
cheesy programs back then. But I ended up working in a small boutique law firm that was basically based in New York. And I mean, I'd moved to New York. It was early 20s. Living in New York was like a dream, you know, going
I
from
can
a council
imagine.
estate to Upper
Yeah.
East New York. It was amazing. And we had like it was a small firm. We had crazy clients like Deutsche Bank and the UAE royal family and Def Jam Records. And so
Well, hold on. That is quite the mix.
it
Deutsche
really
Bank,
was. Yes.
UAE royal family, and Def Jam Records.
Yeah. And lots
Okay.
of other clients as well, but they all paid us, you know, ridiculous amounts of money as a retainer every month. And I, you know, I wore a suit to work every day. And
And
that
heels.
was the
Yeah.
space that I was in. But I realized that I didn't want to be in that space, actually. I saw a lot of entitlement. I saw a lot of excess, a lot of wastage of money. And when one of our offices in London was in the Deutsche Bank building, and Deutsche Bank at that time had 30 offices in central London alone. I mean, and the excess was just through the roof. And it really kind of shook me because I was like, okay, I come from, you know,
Yeah.
pretty humble backgrounds, and
Yeah.
like people who just take like have no real understanding of, you know, anyone that's grown up in a marginalized kind of community or society. So I left New York, I moved back to London, and I wanted to be a DJ and I wanted to work in music. So I bought two Technics 1200 turntables. They've actually stopped making them now. They are just beautiful pieces of equipment. And I bought vinyl records. So I started learning how to DJ. And I needed a job to, like, you know, help pay my rent. So I started working in this very junior position at Warner Music. And I kind of just kind of worked my way up. You know, I had a lovely, really nice job at Warner. And when I left, I was vice president of emerging markets. But I didn't quite realize it when I was there. But there's all sorts of, I guess you could say, challenges and problems at big corporations.
Yeah.
You know, I was considered marginalized, of course. It was very rare for someone that looked like me ever to hold, you know, a vice president role and almost always I was the only female and the only person of any color in the boardroom meetings that I would have to go to.
Which
And
is
it gets
so
a little
odd because it's
tiring.
music. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, but the people that are calling the shots and at a certain level were, you know, let's say it what it is. They were almost all middle-aged white American or British men. And it gets really
yeah.
tiring after a while because my job was kind of to get deals done in territories that most people had never even been to or cared to go to, and find artists in those territories that no one really cared much about. Anyway, what happened probably, I think it was maybe 2010 now. So I'd been at Warner for a few years. The Pakistan floods happened, and I was horrified because millions and millions and millions of people were homeless, and it seemed like no one really cared, and certainly no one in the music industry cared. But I was very close to an artist we had just signed called Ruma in the UK, and her background, her father was from Pakistan and so was mine. And so we were having lunch one day and talking about like what can we do, and we just knew we wanted to do something. So I ended up meeting this amazing woman called Valerie Amos. She is a baroness, which means she's very smart and very important. She has a portrait hanging in the House of Lords, in the House of Parliament in the UK. And she was the Under Secretary General at the UN at the time. And she just started this role, which was emergency relief. And I met Valerie, and she became one of my close friends and mentors, and still is to this day. She is just a badass, because she's the first Black woman to do almost every job she's ever done. And now she's the first Black woman to be head of Oxford University.
Oh,
Her
okay.
friends are like, she's best friends with Anjali Kidjo and Joan Armatrading and just all these really cool people. And music was really, really important to her. And when we met, we kind of had this shared belief that, okay, to really engage people into these big problems in the world, how about we uplift and inspire people? Like, let's change that narrative of what it means to help someone by inspiring them through music or the creative arts. And so I started working a lot with Valerie and her team. We did a lot of big projects at the UN. The first one we ever did was a project with an artist we manage now called Natty. Natty is a singer-songwriter. He lives off-grid in Jamaica now.
Oh, sweet.
And he
Oh, Natty as in Natty Dread, like.
not Natty Dread, but he's from London, from central
Yeah.
London. He now lives in Jamaica. But we brought him to the UN General Assembly in New York to perform with Beyonce for this big event for
Oh,
World
wow.
Humanitarian Day. And this was, maybe it was 2012. We reached 1 billion people in one day. And that was a long time ago. And the only social media platform was Facebook at the time. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. We've reached all these people. How can we, keep talking to these people, right? How can we build a community out of this? And the UN had overpaid a very expensive creative agency to run the project. They didn't get anyone's email addresses. There was no like follow up. So it was this massive missed opportunity, but also we were in a different world back then, right? And so we did that. We did a lot of other projects, but I think at that moment, I was still at Warner and I was still kind of working my way up, but I knew that my soul's purpose, if you like, was to do something with music and the creative arts that has a positive impact, in this world. And so then I left, I set up my company now, and I just started to understand a bit about this new technology and Bitcoin. And when you kind of wake up to the power of it, you can never go back to sleep. And so my company now is called Conscious Music Group, and we work with lots of musicians all over the world, but we have a special focus on musicians from refugee camps, favelas, ghettos, conflict zones, and indigenous cultures around the world. I've worked with Bob Marley's family a lot. We do a lot of projects with them, and it's always for us about finding musicians, artists. We do a lot of stuff in the kind of visual art space as well, but partners that have this shared belief that through the creative arts and through music, which I truly believe is one of the greatest art forms in the world, that this is how you make an impact and this is how you make change.
Yeah, definitely. That is such an incredible background. I can relate to you as well, because until the age of 10, we also grew up I grew up in low income housing. So I understand. And then you get to a world where you see a lot of excess, and it's just like, whoa. I mean, it's almost obscene to see.
It was in every single way obscene. Every
Yeah.
single way. I mean, it was mind blowing, and makes you really kind of question everything. And that's when I knew I don't want to be in that space. I do not want to work with people where, that is the driving force of their life, because, yeah.
So how is it? So I mentioned before that my father records music and stuff, but it's very independent. It's very small scale. He was a teacher and stuff. How? I guess for a lot of people on the outside looking in, we visualize instantly like big stars and big artists, and we assume that artists earn a living through their music. What is it really like?
It's pretty grim right now. I'll be really honest. More so if you're a new artist, I think, but also for, a number of artists that have been making music for a long time. It's not easy to make a living from your music in the current within the current structures in the
Yeah.
music industry. And I mean, I can give you a little kind of snapshot about what it's like right now, right? So if you and let's just talk about, say, a new upcoming musician. So this is what it's like. If you write a song yourself and you perform it, right, you would then take that song that you've written and you spent time writing it, composing it. You'd go into the recording studio, you record it. You have a producer, an engineer, maybe some featured artists or some other musicians in there. Then you have a piece of work, a piece of
Yeah.
art, actually. And our belief at Conscious is that music should be considered fine art and treated as such, because there's so much thought and emotion and vibration and just love that goes into creating just one song, and we can get into what the current kind of systems are like at the moment, but it's great to have, like all the music in the world on your phone in your pocket, but it's come at the expense of really treating music in a way that it really is an
Yeah.
art form. So you make this song, you've gone into the recording studio, you've got a piece of music, and then you have to put it out. So you put it on the DSPs, the streaming platforms. You probably need to pay someone to help you get it playlisted, because if you don't get on the right playlist on the platforms and know the editors of those playlists, you're never going to make enough streams or get enough streams that you'll make any real revenue from it.
Hi, everyone. It's Saida, host of Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions. To my listeners based in Canada and the US, if you're looking for a seamless way to stack sats, i.e., save money in Bitcoin, check out the Bitcoin Well. And you're probably thinking, Sai, you moved to Switzerland a long time ago. How do you know the service is good? Well, I asked my father, the man who famously told me there's nothing wrong with being frugal, to test out their service, and everything checks out. He visited one of the ATMs in Scarborough. It was very intuitive, very easy to use, and the fees were not too high. So if my dad says it's okay, it's okay. Remember to use referral code AAB21Q when you stack sats with the Bitcoin Well. And please, 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 let me know how your experience is. Give me all of the details. And if you'd ever like to be on Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions to talk about your experience with Bitcoin Well, or just your experience with Bitcoin in general, I would be more than happy to host you. So, I just to playlisted. So, I don't have Spotify. I have Apple Music because I had it, a while ago.
We
It's
only
still
have
on my phone.
Tidal. Well, I mean, we have all of them, but we only work really on Tidal because
Well, I had Tidal as well up until I think like 2017 or 2018, but no one else had it. I remember one friend saying, "You always get these things that no one uses,"
because
but
you're a renegade.
yeah, apparently, yeah. But so playlisted. So what kind of playlists are you referring to, and who curates these playlists?
Yeah. So, for example, on Spotify, New Music Friday, which comes out every
Oh,
Friday
okay.
and has
Yeah.
new music on it. So it's specialized playlists. And because we can't control the algorithms,
Okay.
you don't know where your music's going to hit, and you don't know when someone goes into Spotify or Apple or any of these platforms what their feed will show, right? Because as we all know, we don't control the algorithms, right? So you need to pay someone, which is the same kind of in the radio space. You have
Payola, right?
it was illegal in many territories, but you pay someone who is called a radio plugger, who goes every week or whatever their frequency is to the radio stations and sits with the producers and basically tries to sell them a particular song and sell them, and not sell them, I mean, for cash, but just sell the idea of, hey, this artist has got a new record coming out, like this is, can you play this on your show? So it's kind of a similar thing, right? And I feel I want to say we don't really do a lot of this at Conscious because we've gone in the complete opposite direction, because I believe in these legacy platforms, you're fighting a losing battle, right? It's like
Yeah.
social media. I say this all the time to artists and any partners we have. We're not having a meeting about spending money on DSPs or on social media because none of us have any control over the algorithms, and we are
Yeah.
fighting a losing battle. And it's taking our attention away from being more creative and thinking of creative ideas. So, but anyway, this is the world we live in right now. So you get it playlisted, so you get on some of the playlists on any of the excuse me, DSPs. Then, if you, as a new artist, are able to get, let's say, 1 million streams, which is not easy, right? And maybe it takes you a few months, right? So maybe it's taken you 2 or 3 months to make that song, package it up, get the right team, put it on the streaming platforms. Maybe in 6 months you get 1 million streams. Then what happens? The DSPs, on average, will send you a check. They'll take 2.5 months minimum to send you that check, and you'll get a check for a couple of $1,000s, depending on what the structure is, if it gets prorated out, and then you've got to split that between management, label, whoever you might have in your team. And if you have nobody,
Wow.
you take it. But really, in that 9 month period where you've thought of a song, you've written, you've recorded it, you've put it on the streaming platforms, you haven't even made enough money to pay your rent. And that is
Yeah.
the current industry that we live in, unfortunately. And then, of course, artists would make money from merchandise. Artists would make money from
Yeah.
going on tour. But even more so now, going on tour is difficult to make money. It's not an easy space to be in as an artist. So when I met Quex and started to really understand, and I was introduced to him by the guys from Wave Lake, Michael and Sam,
Hmm.
and then we started talking about Fountain. And when you put all these pieces together, I remember we were on one call, my team at Conscious, and after this call, everyone was like, it's like there's a parallel universe out there. Like, holy
Right.
shit, there's actually a way to really build a community in a meaningful way around you as an artist and directly engage with that community and make a living from your art. And it's still early. We still have a
Yeah.
ways to go, but there's a lot of education that needs to happen. But I am the eternal optimist and very excited.
Yeah, definitely. Within the Bitcoin space, when I first started to learn about it, I heard a lot of people talk about vibrations and, the soundness of sound money and how it changes the mindset and it shifts the way we perceive the world. And so listening to you refer to music in that way makes me think of like sort of the beginnings of my Bitcoin journey.
I love that. Thank you. That's a huge compliment. And,
Yeah,
I will say again, our birthright is to wake up in the morning and be creative, right? And
yeah,
as we all say in the Bitcoin community, like, obviously there's all these familiar sayings, fix the money, fix the world. But imagine a world where you can wake up in the morning and just be creative, and you are not doing a job you hate, you're not working with people you don't respect, but you're doing something that's contributing to the betterment of society, humanity, and this planet. I mean, what a different world we would live in.
yeah, totally. So, how did you discover Bitcoin then? What was your intro?
So I feel like I'm a newbie.
Yeah.
I kind of started to understand a little bit I think around 2020, 2021. So there is a Vedic astrologer that I followed, and I was watching an interview with him, and he started talking about Bitcoin, but he also spoke about crypto.
Wait, what's his name?
His name is
Uh,
Simon Chokoisky, and I'm
okay.
watching an interview on a platform called Gaia.tv. So it's a lot of kind of
Okay.
spiritual,
Yeah.
a lot of yoga, meditation, but a lot of interviews with amazing thought leaders of our time. And I watch it all the time because we're just in this moment of like being amongst so many incredible people that are going to help change the planet for the better. And so I'm watching this interview and I'm like, oh, what's this Bitcoin? What's this crypto? And so I kind of like got into it at that moment. But, you know, you kind of, I got into the crypto, I bought, I sold, I lost, I made money, all of that kind of stuff. You kind of have to
Yeah.
do that. But I want to just take it back a minute to a moment in time, which was the 21st of December 2012. and everybody, there were lots of kind of doomsayers around, and Hollywood making movies about the end of the world, right? The end of the
Yeah.
world was 21st of December 2012, and it wasn't the case at all. Many indigenous cultures at that time talked about an end of a time period, and the Mayans, for the Mayans, it was the end of their
Oh,
long
I think I
petrol.
remember that.
So this moment, which I kind of went into in quite a big way, because many thought leaders and philosophers that I studied always talked about this moment. And so it wasn't actually the end of time, it was the end of a moment in time. And astrologically, we were coming to the end of the Piscean age, which we had been in as a planet for 2000, around 2150 years, something like that. And we were moving to the age of Aquarius. Now, the Piscean age is an age where there are lots of veils and illusions and a lot of secrecy. And I think we stand here now and it feels like that really rings true, because that's when all these institutions that govern the world we live in now kind of came to be built. And a lot of veils and corruption and secrecy and illusions and all of that kind of stuff. And the age of Aquarius, which we're in now, is the age of kind of consciousness and harmony and living together in this way. And I always used to think, like, I'm so excited by this notion, but how the fuck are we going to live together in
Yeah,
harmony? You know,
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
we live in a world where, like, it is so corrupt, you know. Like, my son's father is from Mali in West Africa, and if you understand about, you know, what happens within the IMF, and this is what I love about this community, because everyone really knows about this now, and many people didn't. There are 15 African countries tied to the French colonial currency still. And I've been there and I've seen what it does. And,
Yeah.
you know, when you drill down and you understand how that keeps people down, then you really start to understand, like, the power of what Bitcoin stands for. And I just, when I started to get that, it's like you just, every day you're in this moment of your mind being blown, because you're so inspired by what you learn and the people that you start to follow and people that are speaking about certain things in certain ways. And it's really just incredibly inspiring. And again, it goes back to this thing of,
Yeah.
wow, there really could be a world where everyone can wake up in the morning and be creative in whichever way they want to be. And that's what
Yeah.
I am, like, super excited about. So I give thanks for, I feel like it's come from another, like, maybe not of this planet, because I don't know who brought Bitcoin to
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
consciousness, but it was something like next level for sure, for sure.
Yeah, it is very powerful. And I relate to your epiphany because, so before I really started to fall down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, I was also persuaded that I guess I used to see sort of racism, race, and sexism or misogyny as the problem, the cause, as opposed to a symptom of something else that's happening. And I used to do consulting in DEI as well. And after a while, I thought, it's not adding up at all. And so when I really took the plunge into Bitcoin, I thought to myself, oh, okay, I get it. You know, like the money is a root cause that no one addresses. We talk about all of these other things, but we don't talk about the money printing. We don't talk about, the Cantillon effect. We don't talk about who is controlling the flow of capital at all. We just focus on, our differences. And it sounds very basic, but, as soon as that clicked for me, I thought, oh, okay, this is where I will, spend my time. This is where I will learn. But I guess kind of unfortunately, not too many people are there. I think you mentioned DEI in the music industry as well. I can only imagine like what that must be like in the corporate world. It's not so sweet, but I can only imagine what it could be like in the music industry.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And, I saw it firsthand. I had a front seat to all of it. When George Floyd was killed, I had already left and had set up a company. And so I wasn't at Warner at the time, but, was a lot, all these funds were set up to DEI funds, which actually you have written an amazing article that everyone should go read
Oh,
about the
thank
power
you.
of Bitcoin to deal with the core issues, right? Because that's what we're talking about. And now you see, these funds and these initiatives were almost meaningless and worthless. But going back into, what you see there, like I said, I was oftentimes the only female and the only person of any color in boardroom meetings regularly. And, Warner has 3,000 plus people. When I left, I think the year I left Warner or the year before, in the UK, the government made every company do a gender pay gap study.
Yeah, I remember that.
There was a 49% gender pay gap at Warner Music between what men and women were paid. And when that came out, it was like, okay, there really is a problem here. Like we really, and I think there's still a ways to go. But again, any big corporation that's beholden to its shareholders, or even if it's private, it's beholden to a number of either public or private, but it's also run by people that are very privileged, and
And
this
usually close
idea.
to the money printer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they you throw around something like quantitative easing and everyone thinks it's a big word for something important. No,
Yeah.
it's just printing money. That's
Yeah.
what it is, right? And I think at big corporations especially there's this need to just it's either the advertisers or the shareholders or whoever is sponsoring, whatever, they are who call the shots, not the people that work within that corporation. And so what I've tried to do is really take learnings from how not to run a record label from my previous job and hopefully put it into something more positive and inspiring and uplifting in the world we live in now.
So when you were with Warner, or just, I guess, like word on the street, or are any of these major labels considering digital transformation, for lack of a better term? Are they considering how to incorporate something like Bitcoin into their workflows or on their balance sheet? Or is this still something that is still sort of seen as, like, I guess, Wall Street or cypherpunks?
I would say there's very few companies at all that have any kind of dealings in Bitcoin. I think Empire might be one of the very few, which is an amazing label run out of San Francisco. They were one of the first labels to ever pay one of their artists in Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Ghazi is the head of that company, and they're really pivotal and doing a lot of great stuff. I don't believe there's any other major record labels because they don't need to, is the real point of it. And, when we talk about just kind of the notion of open source in the Bitcoin community, major record labels and those old school models are not open source for a reason because they're the gatekeepers, right? And they're
Yeah.
the ones that, make the most of the money, really.
Yeah, I hear that. I've heard a lot of horror stories uh, about the record industry, but they're secondhand. Like I don't know, anyone directly who's worked in it. So, if an artist, for example, starts and incorporates Bitcoin relatively early in their career, this is a big if, but let's say the fiat price of Bitcoin continues to appreciate. How does that change the artist's art? Like, is there less pressure then to produce as much, like less volume, and therefore the focus is more on quality? Is there less pressure to go on tour? Like, how does that change when I guess the artist has savings that they could live off of?
Look, I think it's different for everybody, right? You get some artists that they just want to be famous, right? And that's their sole reason for,
Oh,
for
okay.
becoming a musician is to be on that kind of whatever perceived fame is. We don't necessarily sign a lot of artists that have that mentality because of the work we do, and we call conscious music group because we want to work with artists that want to have long-term sustainable careers in the music
Yeah.
industry and are
Okay.
contributing in a meaningful way. And we are very big on long-term artist development. The music industry now, almost every major music company, the way you would get signed as an artist today is based on the number of streams you have on your streaming platform profiles and the number of social media followers you have. And that's
Oh,
it. And
yeah.
if you have a viral TikTok hit, then, you might have a better chance of being signed. But there's not a lot of the way we do it now. I mean, we actually go to refugee camps and find artists and to ghettos and favelas and places like this. And we have an amazing network of people, around all these spaces helping us find artists because for us, imagine the how many artists are sidelined from the music industry
Yeah.
because one, they don't know anyone in the music industry, or they don't even have the funds to make a demo or do anything. And so what we're trying to do is level the playing field, really. So to answer your question, I think an artist that someone that is doing something for just to make money or to be famous, it doesn't really impact them at all. And I don't, but it will absolutely impact artists that really focus on their art and creating
Yeah, I
either
see.
high vibrational music. I mean, a lot of artists that we work with just don't want to be on social media. In fact, new artists we're talking to, we're just about to sign a new artist. They don't even want to be on Spotify. They see no value being on Spotify. And
Yeah,
so
I
when I
hear
talk
that.
to them about what we're doing and the power of Bitcoin and platforms like Wavelake and Fountain and any other platforms coming out in this space, that's all they want to do. They want to be there.
Oh,
And then when you
excellent.
bring Nostar and say Primal or any other platform into the picture, now you have the ability to build a community as an artist, take your data wherever you want, but really actually speak
Yep.
to your community, and that changes everything. And that's what we've been trying to get to for a long time. So yeah, I think bringing Bitcoin into the music space, it's not necessarily for the big corporations. They will adopt it at some point because
Yeah.
they'll have to, but I don't think it's changing. I don't think there's anyone really pioneering enough or would take a risk to do that because they don't need to. So you just kind of continue in the same old school way of
Yeah.
doing business.
Exactly. Necessity is like is it's a blessing sometimes I
Yeah,
find because you
exactly.
find things that other people disregard, and you end up being cutting edge, if you will. So that's incredible. That like these new artists, they don't want to be on social media. I
They don't want to be on social media. They don't want to be on Spotify. And quite frankly, most artists that really are involved in creating art just don't want to spend any of their time posting on Instagram or Facebook or doing anything like that. I mean, I will say though, on the other side, we
yeah.
work with an amazing musician. She's a singer, she's a rapper from Dakar in Senegal. They, her and her management team have not spent 1 cent on any of these platforms, right? So they've done no digital marketing, and she has millions of views on her video.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, she's amazing. And so when you get it like that and you kind of enjoy it a little bit and you're good at it, great, go ahead and do that. But this need for everyone to post on socials, for most artists, it's just like it's exhausting and it's
It's
not something they
overwhelming.
want to do. Yeah.
And it sucks your soul. Like, I mean, I try to post a lot because you have to be relevant and stuff, but
Yeah.
there are times that I'm just like, I don't want to be doing this. Like,
Yeah.
and sometimes I don't. I just stop because yeah, it's not natural to be out there and to have an opinion on everything and to have an image for everything. So I hear that definitely. So so do your artists, do they find like Noster and Waveflake, do they find these platforms by themselves, or are they introduced to them? Like how does that work?
No one's found these platforms by themselves. And actually, we're working with Man Like Quakes a lot
Yeah.
and a few other musicians that are in the Bitcoin space. And there aren't that many, but unfortunately, but we're working on trying to put some educational tools together and to really be able to help artists understand this, because once they get it, it's mind blowing. And it's so like this whole idea of value for value. And I
Yeah.
can listen to a song on Fountain that's being played and send some sats to the
Yeah.
song on way, like it's just like, wow, this is incredible. And this in the music and tech spaces, we and at Conscious, we kind of have always talked about this ideology, which was called 1000 True Fans. And it was an article, it was based on an article that was written by the editor of Wired magazine, a guy called Kevin Kelly, back in 2008. And it went like this: in order to make a living in the digital age that we're moving into now, as a musician, you don't need to sell a million records. If you're a painter, you don't need to sell a million paintings. If you're a chef, you don't need a million people to come to a restaurant. What you need is 1,000 people anywhere in the world that deeply support what you're doing. And if those people on average was to support you, I don't know, $10 a month, you've made 100,000 at the end of the year. You can support yourself, your family, maybe even your community. But then what happened from there, as we all know, is the internet took a detour, and then it just became about big tech. But now, as we bring Bitcoin back into this space and this idea, it's not even maybe 1,000 true fans. It could just be 100 people that support you anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah.
So now it really is about creating, and this is what I'm really excited about, again, with platforms like Nostr, all the platforms and the apps on top of them, but just this idea of open source, but an artist that I say, like, let's set up a Primal account, or let's go and do something on Nostr, or let's like try out Wavelake. Like, there's still a period of transition, because inevitably they have a following, right, on the legacy social media platforms, and they've got a profile on all the DSPs, and it's not only moving artists over, it's also educating their fans, and that's the difficult thing. But I believe the more we keep going, and we have to just keep talking as much as we can, and put as much education out there for people to start discovering these platforms and these apps and these protocols.
Yeah, and simplified education. I find that I guess earlier Bitcoin adopters are still very technical in the way they speak without even realizing it, because that's the way they learned. And I can see, even me, like, I'm not technical. I'm like maybe a super user or something. And there are times when I'll say something and people, their eyes will just glaze over. They're like, what is she saying? Yeah. So yeah, simplified education and stuff. That is so good. So where do you see conscious music in the next 5 to 10 years?
But it's hard I mean, I have no idea where we're going to be at all. But if I was to kind of just say a few pathways that I hope we're walking down in a really kind of strong, impactful way, it would be to have many more artists understand this technology. It would be to be kind of working on this idea that you can wake up and be creative and make a living from your art, and support your family, maybe support your community through your artwork. And there would be far more adoption of these tools that we have now in the Bitcoin community, and because they're so powerful, and there's unfortunately so much misinformation out there. But you know, at Conscious, we're in the business of long-term artist development. So we want to just be in the space of making amazing music all around the world with amazing artists, and helping to put that out into the world.
That's so beautiful. And before we wrap up the interview, one piece of advice that you can, there's a new artist, they're trying to figure out their path. They're seeing you right now. What would you say to them?
I would say something I say to myself all the time. The only way you will fail is if you give up. And what that really means, I mean, many artists, I think Nipsey Hussle used to talk about this a lot, but you will only, like, just don't give up. Just don't give up. Just keep going. That's the most genius thing you can ever do, is not to give up.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Serene. And remind people where they can find you.
We don't have much of a profile out there right now. We're still working on, we've launched a couple of music projects, but we will be launching the label properly over the coming months. But if you want to find out some projects that we're working on, you can come to our website, consciousmusic.digital. But yeah, we'll keep everyone informed about where else you can find us.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you very much. And stay tuned for 21 questions.
Keys. Yeah. Man like Quakes. Man like who? Yeah. Takes her Bitcoin off exchanges under self-custody. She runs her own node, providing liquidity. Yeah, she got her own keys. She got her own keys. She got her own keys. Yeah, she got her own keys. 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 Yeah, she got her own keys.